Neuroscientifically, your brain loves being right. It's addicted to it. And so why don't we give it something worth being right about? Because it's going to go out trying to prove itself and find evidence to reinforce its theory. If my hypothesis is the world has plenty for me, I am not done because I'm still breathing, I can always take another step, I can give and it doesn't take away from me, then if my brain wants to prove itself right, to me, I like the life that's created as a result.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Silvas. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. My name is Amy Silvas. I am your host, and oh my goodness, do I have a special treat for you today. I'd like to welcome Joseph Barkley. Joseph, welcome.
Amy, I'm so excited to be here.
This is so great. This is so great. I'm going to read your bio real quick so folks know all the amazing things about you. Joseph King Barkley is a Los Angeles-based leader and coach who has been married to Katie, I call her Katie Bark, for over 20 years. Their most important and exciting work is raising their two amazing children, Tessa and Marlo. Joseph is a former television and film songwriter who became a nonprofit and for-profit entrepreneur. He now dedicates his professional energy to helping accomplished individuals and teams who long for more discovery as to what they're capable of and generate the clarity and courage to experience it. Oh my gosh, that just scratches the surface of all the great things that you've done, Joseph. Full disclosure, I actually met you because you were my pastor for many, many years, which is really special. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You've since pivoted. So as you know, this podcast is all about abundance. You work with people.
Yeah.
You've cultivated abundance in your life. So I'd love to talk about what does an abundant life mean to you?
Well, I love the question. And I think there was a way that I used to answer that, Amy, which would have been a certain measure of freedom that I could get from being physically healthy enough or having a certain amount in the bank account or being able to only work so many hours so I could have this much time off. And then finally I had abundance. And I've started to think about that differently in a way that maybe your listeners might find resourceful or they might resonate with, or frankly, it might challenge the way they're currently thinking about what abundance is. By definition, abundance to me means in a position of overflow. So where I'm able to love, give, create, connect, because I already have more than enough. And more than enough is available to me. That definition alone might reinforce the old way of thinking about it, where, okay, when I finally have enough in the bank account, then I have enough to give. Or when I finally have enough time, I've carved out enough time, margin, finally I can do that extra thing or volunteer at my kid's school, or then I have overflow. But now I've really started to understand that abundance is more of a way of understanding reality than it is a destination to arrive at. So what if we currently live in an abundant world? If all of the resource that is necessary for me is already available, even if I've not accessed it, even if I haven't asked for it yet, even if I haven't taken the risk to unlock it, what if it is all there for us? Well, then I'm already in a state where giving to you does not take from me. I already have margin available to me. I'm already loved enough so I can love you with fewer and fewer strings attached because I can love from abundance. So it's an understanding, it's a conviction about how the world works. And I wouldn't be the first person to talk about the difference between abundance and scarcity. But I do think that that's not just a trick that we play on our minds and self-help books are trying to perpetrate. I think it really is a framework through which you understand what's going on around you. So I can look at the world as a depleting resource or a limited resource, and if I don't get mine, then somebody else is going to have too much and I don't get enough, or they've got a head start or privilege that I don't have. And I'm going to show up proving myself right. Or I can see that the world has plenty to go around. There's enough to share. And by collaborating with people and by giving time, by giving sacrificially, there's still more where that came from for me. And now I'm going to go out looking to prove myself right about that. So abundance to me is a state that I can be in all the time, even as I build the things like more time and physical health and financial resources. So yeah, that's how I understand abundance now.
Wow. I latched on to the concept of you saying, I'm going to prove myself right.
Yeah.
That is so interesting because yes, if you think that everything is already there that we need, that abundance is there, but maybe our thoughts can only focus on a certain number of things of what's kind of in front of us or what we can imagine. So you can, I don't want to get too weird on, creating your own reality, but if everything is already there, what you focus on or what you choose to believe, that will become your reality and become what exists around you, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, I think looking at the future, Amy, and I know you'll get this just because we've shared so much of your story and Katie and I've had the privilege of being a part of your story. By looking forward to the future and saying, well, it's all downhill from here, or it's never going to be as good as it once was when I was a teenager, or, some glory day that you had in the past. I would suggest, Amy, that that's just as make-believe as looking to the future and saying, what if it's wildly better than it's ever been before?
Yeah.
Or what if the prosperity that I'm looking for or the impact that I want to make is still in front of me? Both of those are just as make-believe. I just get to choose which one to work with. And that is a way of creating a reality for yourself. I'm going to show up to the world differently. And your brain, like neuroscientifically, your brain loves being right. It loves it so much. It's addicted to it. And so why don't we give it something worth being right about? Because it's going to go out trying to prove itself and find evidence to reinforce its theory. If my hypothesis is the world has plenty for me, I am not done because I'm still breathing, I can always take another step, I can give and it doesn't take away from me, then that's something if my brain wants to prove itself right, to me, I like the life that's created as a result.
I'm just thinking through, I've been friends with you and I call her Katie Bark. That's her name on social media. You and Katie.
Yeah, that's how everybody can find her. She's way cooler than me.
She's awesome. She's awesome. But in the 12 years that we have, developed this friendship and, obviously our relationship in and outside of the church, I will never forget when Katie said one time that everything she has in your home, she's not going to have it there unless she feels comfortable sharing it and giving it away. Mm-hmm. And she probably said that to me 7 years ago, maybe longer than that, but it stuck with me. But just as you're talking about this, you all live this. This isn't just something, I know you coach and you speak and, you're just saying on this podcast, it's really something that you all live out in principle. And some people might view that as dangerous, as, from that scarcity mindset. And I look at how you all have lived your lives and cultivated the life that you all live. How did you get to that point? Or is this just something you've always known to be true? And it's just how you were born? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, thankfully, I think this is good news for your listeners, that it's a choice that we made. It's not some instinct that we were born with. Okay. It still continues to be a choice that we make. For us, the mantra, Amy, that you're recalling is we refuse to own anything we won't share.
Okay.
Now, I quickly follow that up with, there's also a really great place for healthy boundaries and, limits to who you would trust with what. Just because I own a car doesn't mean I'm going to trust a 9-year-old with it.
Right.
So I'm not going to share it with absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
So there are, some rules of engagement, but we refuse to own anything that we would refuse to share with anybody.
Right.
And so those are still choices that we make when a neighbor is asking for something that feels like a bit of a risk because what if they damage it? Or, I don't have the time to help in a certain way. But I also think it's just best business practice is what I've learned. So that's also reinforced this idea that very few people, in my estimation, have built generosity into their business plan. And so instead what happens is it's more like gift giving. You can feel the strings attached. Amy, I know you understand this. It's like by giving you this thing, by the way, it's branded with my company on it. I'm going to give you a t-shirt. I'm like, the last thing I need is a t-shirt with your company on it. That's useless to me. I know why you're giving this to me.
Good point.
or giving me things arbitrarily, like I'm going to give out some gift cards to something. That's sharing in a way. I'm sharing resource with you,
Yeah.
but it's not thoughtful. It's not intentional. And so as we practice the sharing, there's a sort of two things that come up, and your listeners can make resource out of this if they want to. One is just look at the stuff that you have, and when called upon to share, or if it's something that you could offer even without being asked, if you have a gift or a talent where you know this would really be helpful, so I'm going to raise my hand when there's an opportunity to help. But that's one way to look at your stuff and yourself. There's also a strategic move here, and let's not forget that there is a way to give in such a way that's empathetic, personal, from abundance, no strings attached. Doesn't even have to have my name on it, just to know, like, hey, listen, even if we don't get to do business together, you matter. If you decide to beg, borrow, and steal whatever I put out on LinkedIn, or I tell you in a meeting, and you decide to, repeat that without copywriting me, listen, it's going to be fine. There's more people that I can help. I don't feel like that's robbery from me. So it still feels like a risk sometimes, but it has really paid off in very practical ways, because I just think that's how God's designed the world. So that may be a long way of saying, like, we often choose it, and then the evidence keeps us choosing it.
Okay. That is profound. That is very profound. So you mentioned kind of this business aspect. And I know I mentioned in your biography, I was secretly hoping you were going to show up in guy liner. If anyone hasn't seen.
Who's saying I'm not wearing it now?
Oh, okay.
Are people watching this or listening to it?
We'll have some people watching it too. It'll be
okay. Well, they can't see behind my glasses, but I've got some guy liner on.
Maybe we'll put a special link of you singing. There are many fun things about Joseph, but that's one of them. But you've had many different careers. You've had, different.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but how did abundance play into that? And then also, you mentioned God and how God has designed the world. How did that shape these decisions that you've made? Because it seems like you've really followed something other than just chasing money or chasing, fame like American culture teaches us to do. Yet you found, it seems, incredible happiness and abundance in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like making money, but I didn't choose being a pastor as a really good strategy to get there.
Figured as much, but maybe different calling.
Yeah. I suppose some pastors can make a killing at it, but that wasn't my experience.
Yeah.
So I love the question. I think that I want to remember that you and I have like one life to give. That's the way that I think about it. And I have been, some gifts and resources have been invested into me that can be incredible value to the world around me. So all of my career moves have in part been an exploration of how could I give maximally, as far as I can tell, with what I've been entrusted with. How could I give the most value to the world? And that's not necessarily what created all the changes in the career path, but every time I would show up to a new chapter of my professional life, I thought, okay, well, what place do I have in this particular ecosystem where I am giving what few others can, what only I can give? I'm going to need a lot of help. I'm not omni-gifted, right, but I want to give everything I can give here. My gifting will be somebody else's solution. So how do I do that? And I love doing that with community, always have. So I like creating freely. I like creating with people. But I do have an understanding of the world. My abundance has a logical framework to it. So I think the world is abundance because I think God is a giving God. I think God has created resource for us.
Mm.
And so that's how I logically piece together the resources, but also how I make moves. Like when you see life from a framework that you're here on purpose, you might not know what it is, but you're here for a reason. And part of that purpose is to prove to the world how much God loves them by how you are loving them. Then moving in the direction of how can I provide the most value or care for people or love them or encourage them or call them forward is, to me, a very natural outworking of our purpose. And it's going to take several different shapes, for everybody based on your personality and your particular skill set. But for me, it's like, how do I really express maximum love for people in the best way that I know how. Now, practically speaking, as I went through, I have a business marketing degree, but then I got a record contract in college. So then for the next 12 years, I made music for television and film, as you mentioned before. Then I decided to start a couple of churches, as you do, just the normal.
As one does. Yes.
Yeah. And then now I serve as an executive coach with a elite coaching firm called Novus Global. So, just a really standard, that old chestnut. But each of those moves, though they might seem like pretty radical left turns, all of them, I'm really grateful I didn't have to rely on my intelligence alone or my restlessness alone. Like, I was just like restless in this job or burned out. And so that's why those aren't bad things. I mean, I'm sure your listeners are very smart people and it's okay to pay attention to how you're doing.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only stuff I was working with. I really think that God is ready to lead people who are ready to follow. And so I choose to try and tap into that or pay attention to that leading through some very practical means. I pay attention to what's going on in my own heart and mind, and that's important. What do I want? I think that's a very holy question. Jesus asked it all the time. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?
Yeah.
So let's be honest about what we want. We don't have to get what we want, but let's be honest about it. That's part of it. I'm going to seek input from the people who stand to benefit or suffer the most from it. So that's namely my wife and kids, but it's others. They're stakeholders in my decisions. And then I seek input from people who have wisdom. And wisdom is that they are already living in the future that I hope to create. So generally speaking, and I think this is where, Amy, I think you're going to be so instrumental in people's lives, already are, is so much of what you've created over the last few years is the future that some people hope to have. So you have something called wisdom, and people would do well, even if at first they don't agree with you or they're not used to the ideas, to say, let's pay attention to somebody who's succeeding in a way we want to, because you can either earn wisdom or steal it. And I tell people, man, if every chance you get, steal wisdom, because earning it is so expensive and painful.
Wow.
So every time I made a career move, I was stealing wisdom right and left. What would you do if you're in my shoes? What would you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this is the piece that might feel a little mystical for some of your listeners, but for me, a regular habit of prayer where I'm not just speaking, I'm shutting up, helps me see myself, my instincts, and my circumstances through a different lens. And so every decision was bathed in that. And then at the end of the day, you got to make a decision. You're not going to be 100% sure. I think it was Obama who said, he had a discipline of when he had 51% affirmation, he would just make the decision. And I think that there's analysis paralysis, but it's like, listen, I'm going to have enough information to make a decision, and then I'm just going to make a decision, not overthink it, not put the weight of the world on it, because you can always make another decision if you need to pivot later. Just make a call and move in the direction that you want to. So that's been some of how I've created such wild changes, detours in my professional life.
An incredible impact. I mean, every single one of these aspects of your career have created incredible impact without question. And I love, gosh, there's just so much to impact there. But I love this perspective of it's not just about you, but understanding how the gifts that God has given you can be utilized to share his love. So you're a vessel, but what you want and what's on your heart matters as well. So you're taking both of these things into account and not having an either or mentality, but hey, where do these intersect, and what kind of beauty and abundance for others and yourself can come out of that? It's incredibly powerful.
You are not a victim of some calling on your life. You are a co-creator of it.
Wow.
And that's, to me, that is so liberating. I don't have to be scared of being surprised by a calling, if you want to call it that. There can be a fear of like, gosh, if I really pay attention to what God wants for my life, I'm going to hate it.
Right.
And you might hate parts of getting there because change is hard.
It is. Yeah.
Any kind of change is hard. But God is inviting you to co-create the future that he already designed for you. And trust me, there's going to be so much more joy and freedom and energy and collaboration, and there's going to be better stories on the other side of that risk.
Have you ever thought about having multiple streams of income? Instead of relying on just one stream of income where you're trading your time for money, how would you like to free up more of your time and live a more abundant life? As a listener of the show, you're invited to attend one of our upcoming trainings where I'll give you an inside look into how you can add passive income and get all the other perks of recession-resistant real estate investing without the headaches of being a landlord. We'll also be sharing some hidden mistakes to avoid and the criteria I personally look for when evaluating potential investment opportunities. To reserve your seat for free, go to silvuscapital.com/webinar. Again, that special link to reserve your seat for free is silvuscapital.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the training. And now back to the show.
And I love that you also talk about this action part, because I know even myself, I've been a victim of that. Of gosh, okay, I got to think and strategize all these different pathways and what might happen there and how am I going to prepare for the worst. It's our brain in some ways is trained to keep us safe, right? Keep us from
it's doing its job.
Scary outcome. Yeah.
And your brain, at least at first, can only calculate the future based on what it's already experienced. And that's why so many people in companies that I work with and leaders, people in real estate for sure, they're thinking like, what if I could get 2% more this next year than I've already had? It's not a bad place to start.
Right.
But we usually create incremental visions rather than transformative visions, which is, I don't know, in my wildest dreams, I would be making this much money and have this much time on my hands. Then my brain gets to imagine, and it's a little bit of like short circuiting your brain, but it gets to start being creative about, okay, well, I don't know, what would we try? If that's what we were really committed to, I don't know, maybe we would partner with this person, maybe we would take this risk. And that's the difference between an incremental vision and a transformative one. Your brain is doing its job. It really is trying to protect you. And at least its first instinct is to tap into what you already know, because uncertain, it flags it as danger. So just knowing that about yourself is helpful. Like, oh, that's just my brain doing its job. I love that you're doing your job, brain. It's not as dangerous as we think. Let's go.
Yeah. Brain's just going to brain. Thank you for protecting me. Thanks for
Brains be braining. That's good. We got to make that t-shirt. Brains be braining. No one will get it.
I think that might be the title of this episode. Yeah. Brains be braining with Joseph King Barkley. Perfect.
I love it.
Wow. Well, I can see how this information can be so helpful as you coach individually, right? And then you also do things with larger corporations, and just understanding the structure in which we make decisions and we think through what outcomes possibly could be. So you mentioned spirituality. I mean, obviously you've been a pastor, you baptized me, you married me. I mean, there's how this influences your life is obviously profound. We talk on this podcast about all aspects of abundance, not just career, not just money, not just personal relationships, but spirituality can be a tremendous source of abundance for folks. So I wonder, for people that are looking to dip their toe in, or maybe this hasn't really been a part of their life, do you have any sort of words of wisdom or recommendations for people that are looking to explore this, but just don't know where to begin or might be a little intimidated?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, a few things. One is, don't give up asking the biggest questions.
Ooh.
So I totally understand if you've given up thinking that there are some answers, maybe not all the answers, but given up thinking that there are some answers to the biggest questions. And by biggest questions, I mean, why am I on the planet? How do I know I'm really worth anything other than just telling myself that? Why do I feel compelled to help other people and love them? Where's that coming from? Why do I have some sense of morality and ethics and why do I want more of that in the world? There's something that's stirring in your imagination, and I would call it your soul. But if you want to start with just like, my brain just keeps kind of, and humans be humaning, our prefrontal cortex is wanting to create certainty and meaning around things. And maybe I would suggest maybe that's not accidental. Maybe that's not just because carbon and chaos has led us to developing this weird glitch in our brains. Our brains love to zoom out and try to understand patterns and meaning. So don't stop asking the biggest questions, because those answers might be very helpful and satisfying for you. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is examine the lives of people who have a spiritual practice, and you might notice that there are some who have a greater sense of stability when it's needed most. Not people who just have peace of mind and a sense of chill, or people who are comfortable with the emotional spectrum. That's very valuable too. But
Right.
I'm talking about a spirituality that arms them when life is falling apart, because that's when you're going to need it most.
Right.
People who have there's a bedrock to them
Right.
when they're going through a divorce, or they get the diagnosis, or they got laid off, or their kids are going sideways. And there's just some people in your life. I guarantee you there's somebody in your life who, gosh, they're not ignorant of the pain. They're not dismissing it. They're right in it. They're in the mess, but they're drawing from something that is bigger than that moment for them. Now, heads up, I wouldn't be surprised if the person that you find is a Christ follower. I'm not guaranteeing that that's the case, but that's how I actually came to faith, was during a time of incredible depravity for me, 2 or 3 years of just ripping my life apart, eventually addictions, eating disorders. And I didn't think that there was really hope as I was looking at the world around me. There was just some platitudes or medications or self-help programs. Those can be great. Those are fine. But I was fortunate enough to get into friendship with 2 people, Steve and Phil, whose life had gone through some horrible, horrible messes, but they were drawing from something bigger than that moment. And that's what led me to an exploration, logical, but also hungry and emotional, an exploration of faith. They were involved in a local church. And so I decided to go with them with all my skepticism and all my questions, but I didn't want to leave before I had wrestled those things to the ground, and it changed my life. So that might be some helpful encouragement to people who are exploring those ideas.
Tremendous. I love that you've always encouraged, and you repeated this here, about this exploration and not being afraid to ask those big questions. I think some people, unfortunately, have been hurt by maybe being condemned or mocked or dismissed. Hey, you need to believe, or you shouldn't be asking that. And I know for me, that was very pivotal as I attended your church under your leadership of, hey, it's okay to ask these things. And they're not always easy questions to get answered. It may take some time, but gosh, what a relief to be invited into having those conversations and not feel like you're wrong or you're bad or you're where you shouldn't be by asking those questions. So I appreciate you bringing that here to the podcast. I'm positive that there will be some people that will be incredibly encouraged by that message when maybe they've been hurt by something of the opposite in the past.
Oh, I sure hope that opens them up again. That would be tremendous.
Absolutely. Gosh, this has been one of the fastest podcasts I've recorded, Joseph. I can't believe how the time has gone by.
Well, I talked a lot.
Thank goodness. I mean, as a new podcaster, that's very helpful, right? When your guests are like, great, okay. He knows how this goes. One last thing of wisdom. Again, you're an executive coach. You help so many people tremendously. You have in your past careers as well. Do you have anything on your heart, any piece of advice or encouragement that you'd like to leave folks with as they go on this journey? And then we'll talk about how people can get in touch with you.
Oh, that's great. Yes. I believe every person is capable of vastly more than they are currently experiencing. And I think every one of us is getting in our own way, in a way that we cannot fully see by ourselves. So whether that's hiring a coach, a therapist, a pastor, it's close friends who love you enough to be really honest with you. Doing surgery on yourself is usually messy and insufficient. And there is a power to finding out what you're capable of when you partner with somebody who is devoted to your future success in life and health. So you're capable of wildly more than you're currently experiencing, which is probably good news for any of your listeners who are feeling stuck right now.
Yeah.
And you're getting in your own way because you're a human, and it's okay. Be gracious with yourself and find somebody to help.
Powerful. What a mic drop moment, Joseph. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're a busy man, but this wisdom, this information has just been so powerful, not just for me, but I know our listeners as well. So how can folks get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more, getting more Joseph wisdom? What does that look like?
Well, they can find me at josephkingbarkley.com, but I serve within a really powerful collective of coaches, and they can find us and a lot of free resources at novus.global, novus.global. And there's a ton of free stuff and also ways to get in touch with somebody who may be one of those powerful partners for your future.
Beautiful. We'll make sure to put those all in the show notes. Joseph, thank you again for contributing to the abundance journey of our listeners. I'm so grateful to call you a friend. Please say hi to Katie Barb for me. And thanks everyone for joining us. Really appreciate you. Talk soon.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Silvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.